So yeah, so we're this is our first time recording a podcast live, uh, so it won't really wait for people to come in. But we decided to have another CryptoCast, and we've brought back on our resident cryptographic expert Ridgeback. How you doing tonight, dude?
Very good, very good. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me on again.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, we kind of love having you on whenever we're going to talk specifically about crypto.
Cool.
Um, your knowledge of the technical side of it validates our, Stan and I, our understanding of how important this is going to be going forward. So it's always good to talk to you about this
You
kind of stuff.
you bet, you bet. Not I like trying to help people who want to enter the space and anyone who has any questions and so forth. So yeah, any listeners that want to contact me through the Discord is more than welcome to.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we figured on doing this one live. Just so that people can write in the
Yeah.
comments. I'm not. I actually don't have it open. So if
Hmm.
we have any questions, Stan's gonna chime in.
Yep.
Uh,
Cool.
but since the last time we talked,
Hmm.
um, we've undergone the halving. The Bitcoin
Yes.
mining rewards halving, and you brought it up, and then I saw several articles later
Hmm.
about the message that was written in the
Right.
last block before the halving.
Right.
And so, can you give a little history on that and what that meant?
Oh, sure. So in the original first block, let me pull up that original message on the first Bitcoin block message, and the Genesis block, the very first block that was ever mined, was encoded with a message, and the message was the Times, which is the newspaper, the
Hmm.
Times, 03 January 2009. Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. And that is a reference to the massive economic collapse we had from 2007 through early 2009. And the banks screwing around and damaging people's livelihoods, their retirement funds, wrecking the stock market, wrecking all these loans, or getting bailouts from the government. And us as taxpayers, we pay for that. And when the halving occurred, it was a few weeks now. Another message was encoded. Let me bring that up because it's actually quite interesting. They tried to get it into the very first block of the next series of blocks mined, but what they encoded was another similar message, and this message was New York Times 09 April 2020 with 2.3 trillion with a T injection. Fed's plan far exceeds 2008 rescue. And that is a reference to the after the COVID economic shutdowns, the federal government started to print trillions and trillions of dollars and inject it back into the economy. And this is an ode to that original Satoshi Genesis block that Satoshi mined. And it didn't quite make it into the first block of the new set, but it made it into the last block of the old. So it's just as interesting. And
Yeah.
these pointers, these two pointers in time, both reference very interesting dynamics in Bitcoin's history, because when Bitcoin was born, it was born right in the economic failure of the 2007 through 2009 banking crisis, subprime loan, mortgage, all that stuff failure, and then the halving happened right in the middle of this second economic failure with a huge bailout, and Bitcoin is just the people of Bitcoin are just making sure that people remember forever, mined into the Bitcoin blockchain, that Bitcoin runs counter to the way the Fed likes to print money ad hoc as much as they can without any control, and it's not good. Injecting money back into the economy has all sorts of issues later on, that can cause problems. The first time it took several years to recover. We recovered quite well, but you can only do that so many times, and this second time that just happened was a pretty big one, and there are a lot of interesting articles online that you can read about. Even Barron's talks about these things causing major problems down the line. So, how many times can they print all this money and finally get to a point where you can't print enough money, or you can no longer print money? So it's a scary situation.
Yeah. And just the fact of that message being put in there, it has really two cool aspects to it. The first is that, as much as we want to think that mining is out of the hands of, anyone with who kind of still has the dream of Bitcoin in them, they want to paint this picture that mining is just done by, nameless, faceless, mega corporations that own these mining farms. While there is a lot of that, obviously, whoever won that block and was able to write that message in there, still, the flame of revolution is still lit in them. And that's great that after, all of the hype, all of the trading, all of the altcoins, all of the futures contracts, all of the garbage that can encompass Bitcoin right now, the miners are still in it for why they were in it. Yes, it's very profitable, and yes, it takes a lot of capital to make these mining farms, but it's still the it's pure to them still.
Exactly.
And then the other thing, and it's so crazy, and you touched on it there, of like the timing, right? It's so timing. Insane that that Bitcoin was created, and that first block that message was written at an extraordinary time that is distant enough that we don't really think about that it mattered anymore, but now it lasted the shit show, the bailouts that they did in 2008. That shit show lasted long enough. They kicked the can far enough down the road to coincide completely with Bitcoin's second halving, which was not, pre-planned. Well, I mean, it was pre-planned. It was just
mathematically.
No one could change the date.
Right.
And these two historic global economic events surround that, and it's like it the psychedelic mind in me is like whoa, that's creepy. But like, why, do you think it's just dumb luck, or do you think there's some puppets pulling the strings of all this shit?
No, I think really we just got lucky on that one. It just the COVID thing was really what kind of kicked it off, and I don't think a Bitcoiner invented COVID in order to collapse the economy and align it with the halving. It just we just happen to have it, but it the coincidence is extraordinarily positive for Bitcoin as an financial escape instrument. And there's a really, really neat video that's about 5 seconds long. I think I posted it in the Crypto Corner chat of the protester. He's out on the street and they're interviewing him, and he's screaming. He's like, "Look, the only way out of this mess we have with the police and the economy and all that," and he's screaming, "You have to buy Bitcoin. You have to escape. You have to escape out, and this will starve all sorts of malfeasant like behavior. I don't know if that's really true. You know, money's money, really, but it could have very strong altruistic mechanisms, and Bitcoin as a whole just seems to have like a really honorable, you know, honorable feel about it. You know, it's very honest. Everyone gets to see everything about it. It's very hard to lie on the blockchain, so that's one thing I really like about it. Unlike try to explain any type of hedge fund, it's just full of weird,
Yeah.
backdoor deals and tangles and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's like it's no surprise that Bitcoin came out of the 2008 crisis. And I had seen the movie The Big Short, but I hadn't seen it since I became, a crypto head, if you will. But I just watched it last week.
Yeah.
And it made me kind of revisit all that stuff because, I bought a house at the top of that bubble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it definitely affected me almost immediately. But at that time, I wasn't into investment, or I didn't know what the hell mortgage-backed securities were, or any of that stuff. And so it took me quite a while until I, got to be financially literate to understand what the hell just happened and why I couldn't sell my house, and why I was underwater in a mortgage and what that meant, and all these things I had to kind of learn the hard way. But watching that movie, and it does a really good job. I don't know if you've ever seen it, or anyone listening, like it does a really good job of explaining what happened in a comical, like, kind of school lesson way. But then it's like at the end, you're like, that isn't fiction. This is what really happened, where they were selling bonds backed by bonds, backed by bonds, backed by mortgages that were risky, that they didn't, do financial. They didn't even check if people had jobs or anything. And that was the backbone of our retirement system, of our, the valuation of companies and everything. And like, I didn't realize that at the time, and I'm sure a lot of people didn't. And it's like, holy fuck, we're doing the same damn thing again. And because of how dishonest that was, and it meant that our money had no, backing. That is why crypto and Bitcoin came out of that. It is, that people that may not have a lot in common, other than we feel that, like, our money should be valued in something other than banker tricks,
Right. Yeah. It's when I watched the movie, I looked it up on accuracy, and David McCandless's blog, he went through it, and he said that movie had a 91.4% accuracy to real life events, which is insane for a movie that wasn't even a documentary. They were just they weren't mocking it. They were just going through the machinations of it. And the great thing is the super smart guys in the movie, the guys who should know these financial instruments and so forth, they were confused. That's how bad it was. Those synthetic CDOs, those collateralized debt obligations, whatever. I don't even think they know what that is. It's just a mess of a mess, where one would buy the other, and then they would buy back into another one in order to buy back it again. They call it a synthetic CDO. What a absolute mess. And it's at the end of the movie, they have this text, right? And they're talking about, kind of, what happens to some of the important people in the movie. Well, the last thing they say in the movie was, in 2015, banks started selling, or not banks, but investment firms started selling these really shady, they're called tranche something, and it's just another name for CDO. And CDO is just a giant, horrible mess. So they're back at it again. And it's not good.
Right. And so there, the timing of the halving, perhaps, is just dumb luck. But the fact that I think that we will be heading into over the next year and another, bull cycle for crypto.
Oh yeah.
I do think that timing makes sense because, that movie was written in 2015. So Trump had not become president.
Right.
And if you look at all the people that he put in his cabinet, they're all the people that pulled this crap off.
Yeah.
Almost tanked everything, but got bailed out by, money printing. They took that money and they got bonuses for themselves,
Of course.
and one person I'm specifically thinking of is Steve Mnuchin. That this is exactly what he did for Goldman Sachs. I think he worked for.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
And he just kind of destroyed everything, got a bonus for it.
Of course.
Retired, and then Trump became president, and he got to be in the head of the Treasury.
Yeah.
And so the first thing they all did is undo all the regulation. And I think that free markets should be free markets, but I think there should be regulations on what banks are able to sell people.
Yeah.
And they undid all those regulations. They changed the name so that it didn't scare people to like what you're the tranche things you were talking about.
Yeah.
And just made that all legal again. And they've all been just raking up
absolutely.
Money. Like that's the biggest thing. When they when the coronavirus, when the Congress was told about it and the senators sold their stock or whatever, I mean, who do you think was telling them to do that?
Exactly.
Like, what's her name? Kelly Loeffler or whatever, Loeffler, who, without much fanfare, they dismissed the charges against her, but she obviously had insider trading.
Oh, yeah.
She started that backed custody thing for Bitcoin, and her husband runs the stock market.
Oh God.
Like he's the chairperson of the New York Stock Exchange. So like, it's ridiculous that she claimed like, oh, it was just dumb luck. I got lucky.
Right.
It was like an hour after you were, told that the economy was going to tank.
Yeah.
And so like they're just all in bed. And I think that's why Bitcoin is going to rise, whether there was a halving or not. Once these crooks pulled off their heist, Bitcoin is there as a hedge against what they're going to do to it.
Going back to some of the federal regulations that you were mentioning earlier, one of the ones that scares me the most is it just happened recently was banks no longer have to carry any percentage of the capital they used to have. It used to be like 2 or 10% reserve. Yeah. Now it's 0. So they don't have to have any of your money in the bank physically. All they have to do is have IOUs. And that's scary. That's like one of the first times in modern U.S. banking history that's happened. That's very, very scary. That's where people start pulling their money out with the ATM and they run out of money in the ATM, and they start running out of money when they try to write a check and so forth. When people want to start pulling their money out, moving it around, and you can cause significant economic seizing that can ripple very, very rapidly, very, very fast in different directions. And that was just done, a month or so ago. So that's I'm very interested to see what's going to come out of that. And also, there's been little tiny rumbles of negative interest rates, the idea, the concepts of it coming through. And European countries have done this in dire economic situation like Greece and so forth. And man, I hope it doesn't come this way. That could be bad.
Well,
it's already slashed to 0, right? In the prime rate.
And we're gonna eventually see it. The only way that we don't get negative interest rates is if this really is a V-shaped recovery, which when they say that, for anyone that's kind of, doesn't know what we're talking about, the idea of a V-shaped recovery is that March was the worst and we're onward and upward from here on out. Like
Right.
the coronavirus mess is behind us. We've calculated in all of the losses, and that was priced into the market in March, and
Right.
it's just going up. And I want that to be true, I guess, but
Sure.
I just really don't think it is. Like, I think on top of the coronavirus and the shutdown and business loss that we'll see from that, what's going to be the bill for all the rioting and looting,
Oh,
which,
right.
I think the riots after Martin Luther King was assassinated was like $48 million in 1960s dollars.
Wow.
And I mean, I don't know about you, but I would tend to believe that the riots that we've seen right now and looting and stuff like that is the worst we've ever seen.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we're probably into the billions of dollars
Absolutely.
of loss. And with companies and stores that were already on the brink of collapse,
Right.
this is like kind of the last straw. And once all that debt has to be wiped out, the banks, they're going to have to go to negative interest rates. I mean, it's just it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's almost conspiratorial to think that our economic enemies are not kind of helping to push some of these events forward. And there was already rumblings during COVID that there were Chinese people agents, I guess you could call them, spreading rumors about it. And then recently I had read some stuff about some foreign whatever's trying to spread some dissent and help push the riots and so forth. And it would be very interesting to see the next thing that kind of, like a 1-2 punch. And I had actually thought it was the oil market, but it doesn't seem to have really caused too much, because right before COVID, there was a little miniature oil war between OPEC and Russia. And that caused all those tankers to be floating out in the middle of the ocean. They couldn't offload all their oil, and they caused a negative in the options trade or the futures trading, which is crazy. People were paying people to buy their oil. Yeah, and it just and I was wondering if that, you mix that with the quarantine and the weird economic issues there. I don't know. You do have to give the United States that we were pretty good at weathering a lot of that. But what's the unemployment rate right now? It's pretty bad. A lot of people lost their jobs. So I don't know. What I'm trying to predict here is what's about 3 months down the road, because we have these people with the unemployment. They can't pay their mortgages. So you're going to get a lot of defaults, and I think you won't see the defaults for another 3, maybe 6 months, because a lot of banks are extending it with the COVID relief. They extend their loans out 3 months, 6 months. So if the people who don't get a job, it's those people. And I'm very interested in seeing kind of the cycle of the economy at that point. Well, not necessarily the cycle, but the response to the cycle. What is the federal government or the Fed going to do, or the banks going to do? And that's the scary part. That's where the negative interest rates could come in, or some sort of strange, 1930s era, you can't own gold anymore. That's happened. That's happened once, which is kind of scary.
No, I agree. And that's, to bring it back to Bitcoin, like that is, why, I don't know, after like 2017, it was like riding high from the bull run, and then watching everything crash. It was like there was a, maybe for a lot of 2018, I was like, oh my God, I've been suckered into, duped.
Yeah.
you know, and but instead of rolling over and being
Hmm.
like, oh, you know, I got
Yeah.
gamed, it was like,
Yeah.
well, I got to figure out what this game was that I just
Right.
lost that I didn't know I
Yeah.
was playing, you know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I think it's like the same thing is just it's just another cycle. There's people
Mhm.
right now that
Sure.
are like, you know, or maybe got Bitcoin at the bottom because their buddy told them it was.
Hmm.
And it's like I really hope they're paying attention to all this stuff now because it's just the fuse is set for Bitcoin to just rocket ship again, you know,
Absolutely.
and I think it will coincide with what you were saying, you know, like 3 6 months down the road, whenever the banks, you know, stop
Hmm.
being nice and start asking for
Hmm.
their money,
Yeah.
um, the value of our currency is just not going to be good. You know,
Yeah.
you can't print all this money, you can't have
Hmm.
all this debt wiped out and written off the books without the value of the currency
Right.
going down globally.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and that's what's been going on with China and Russia and the oil, like you
Hmm.
were talking about. But Bitcoin plays into that because
Right.
the value of Bitcoin is, well, there's three things.
Hmm.
One, it's invaluable to the people
Hmm.
that believe in it. You know, the people
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
won't, that stack sats and like it
Hell,
doesn't matter
never
how much
sell.
you know or whatever. Like it's just we know down the road like you can't put a dollar cost on this.
Hmm.
Um, but it's also it's ran by the markets and all the fuckery there, and you know,
Oh
just
yeah.
like last week with the Bart Simpson
Hmm.
move that happened,
Yeah. Sure.
where you know went up, traded for a little bit, went down.
Yeah.
For anyone that doesn't know, on a chart it looks like Bart Simpson's head, so you call it a
Yeah.
Bart Simpson. Um, but also, you know, it's a accurate
Hmm.
value of where the dollar is at, you
Yeah.
know, and it's like when people talk about you know, Bitcoin being $100,000, $200,000,
Hmm.
that may sound ridiculous, but at that time,
Hmm.
you know, you need to
Hmm.
think like, what will
Yeah.
the dollar be worth at that point to make
Yeah.
Bitcoin worth that much?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it just seems like we're just headed towards that, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe I'm being a bear on the United States economy, but it's like I don't know. Like once you become or see the
Hmm.
bearish
Hmm.
view of the American economy, it's
Hmm.
hard to ever go back. You know?
Yeah, so I'm bearish on the dollar, but I'm bullish on our economic might. I think we
Well,
have
yeah,
really good, yeah, yeah, awesome technology, and we have phenomenal engineers and just
yeah,
I work with like amazing engineers that do some crazy stuff. So I have a funny feeling that the rest of the world wants to see the dollar burn anyway. I think a lot of people, well, a lot of countries despise having to convert all their fiat or whatever they need to do into dollars first and then trade with China, or convert it into dollars first and then trade with Australia, and then dollars first and then trade with France. I think they would love to have a common single trade tool that is not spied upon by the United States. I mean, we are despised globally.
yeah,
Um, I've lived overseas, and all they do is complain about America and American interventionism. So um, I think the trigger for Bitcoin, or one of the triggers for Bitcoin, will be when the dollar comes under attack by another financial unit, and everyone who has a dollar will start dumping it into Bitcoin or gold or something that is not the dollar. They'll start buying things that's not the dollar. When the world's other than America, when the other 190 nations in the world's like, nah, we don't really want to trade in dollars anymore. We want to trade in something else. And I think that's happening. I think that system's being built right now. And I think China is going to be leading it because they're already their digital yuan
yeah,
is like we're talking like weeks away.
yeah,
And you're talking a global network. Anyone can jump on it freely. The only I guess you could say downside to that would be a lot of countries still don't trust China. But if someone like Australia or New Zealand built the same thing and said, "Here you go, world, go for it," no problem. People just slip on it, and they start sliding their money around on it, no problem. So um, maybe that's the only thing that'll hold the digital yuan off. But I don't know. I mean, you got a lot of countries out there that they just want money. They don't,
Yeah.
they just want to do trade. A small country in Africa just doesn't care. They just need millions and millions of dollars for their economy to survive, and they'll do it in any easily easy currency. And a good friend of mine, he's a serial entrepreneur, and he builds all sorts of weird stuff, all sorts of different businesses, maids businesses and so forth. And his number one rule, number one, is to get out of the way of the customer. When
Hmm.
they want something, you just give it to them. There's no steps. And if someone could provide a financial instrument that says, here you go, boom, you're done.
Yeah.
Right now, if you had a little country started up to join the SWIFT network, and then you have to interact with the U.S. government and all the rules and all that junk, and they're spying on you, and if there's transactions over $10,000, you have to explain it and all this stuff. What a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So I think other countries just hate it. I mean, just vehemently hate it. But now there are things showing up. And when people start jumping off the dollar, they're going to jump into something else. And I don't think Americans are going to buy yuan. They're going to buy Bitcoin, gold,
Yeah.
those type of things. And
I actually
yeah,
have
go
a
ahead.
perfect follow-up question to that from one of our
Yeah,
viewers, and it's that
yeah.
he's wondering if Chainlink is as hype as the meme suggests, as being one of the options to dump money into.
So I don't consider myself a Bitcoin maximalist, but I do believe in Bitcoin overall, all over all of them. Although the utility of something like Chainlink could be quite valuable. And full disclosure, I own some. I bought some just because I think there's probably something there. Uh, do I think it will be what I retire on? Probably not. I think if anything, it's just going to be one of those 10 times, 20 times, or 100 times
Hmm.
instruments, and then I'll just bail out when I get
Yeah.
a good profit. That's about all I see with
Yeah.
that.
I,
But they have a good idea,
yeah.
interlinking blockchains and so forth. Yeah.
I'm
And-
I'm the same way. I own enough of it that if it 10x's, I'm going to be very happy. But
yeah.
it's not one that I'm like, dude, you got to get Chainlink.
Right.
But it's when I talk about over the next year, there's going to be a bull run in crypto.
Hmm.
That's obviously going to be led by Bitcoin, but there's going to be the alt pop the same way
Yeah.
again. Now there
Yeah.
won't be an
Yeah.
ICO thing like the alts that have partnerships like Chainlink does and
Hmm.
have momentum and
Hmm.
good daily volume,
Hmm.
those are going to go up. But it's not going to
Yeah.
be like, dude, have you heard of you know, Trump coin?
Yeah.
It just went up 10,000x. Like that kind of crap, like it's not really going to happen again.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
Like the good old days of 2017 when you'd go to the fifth page of Coin Market Cap and find some little
Yep.
shitty coin with like
yeah,
$1 million. You would buy like 100 of them. Next day it would go up 1,000%. You're like, oh,
yeah,
I just made
yeah,
$8.
right. Like that's never going to happen. But I could see some crazy FOMO
Hmm.
happening to where
Hmm.
Chainlink, because it's on Coinbase, because
Hmm.
it's on
Yeah,
Gemini now and stuff like
yeah.
that, I could see it going up to
Hmm.
$70 or something
Oh
or
yeah.
$100. You know,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
I could definitely
Absolutely.
see that happen. But the thing is, it's like you can't ride that into the ground. That's the mistake I made before.
Yeah.
Was I was in on stuff like that
Hmm.
maybe even had good ideas and good
Yeah.
teams, but
Yeah.
it was like, oh, it's going to be worth as much as Bitcoin someday, and it's like
Yep.
that's just not the case.
Yeah.
And so you gotta sell, you gotta trade that into Bitcoin. Honestly,
Exactly,
like
exactly. Yeah, I had a good buddy of mine in the big run up. Um, I won't say his name. He knows he's listening, and he had bought into BitConnect, which
oh
was a known
Yep.
scam at the time, a known scam, but it had gone up. He was like, I'm gonna put a lot of money into it, and I'm like, please don't do that. He did it anyway, and yeah, because he rode like for like just like a few days or a week, I think it wasn't much, but he just saw the like spike upwards, and he made like 10 or 12 Bitcoin at the time on that and bailed out. And then like we're talking like days later, it crashes and disappears because BitConnect was a giant scam. And I'm like, okay, you knew what you were doing. You knew it was a scam, and you rode the scam. You played it smartly, but you know when he went to sleep that night, he was worried.
yeah,
And but good on him. He made it.
yeah,
But But I could have jumped on that too, but no, I'm not gonna risk major capital loss on a known scam or anything. And if you look at coin market cap, after about coin 20, you're probably getting very close to the scam all the way down. I'm not saying everything's a scam. Bitcoin SV is definitely a scam. Bitcoin Cash, I don't believe in that. I don't think it's a scam. I just don't like Bitcoin Cash, but Bitcoin SV is a scam.
Yeah.
So, those are just my opinions on them. But I don't like most of these little tiny coins. They're just not. They just don't have the wherewithal that Bitcoin has,
Yeah.
and that's a little bit of maximalist in me, but I do think there are some utility in like Monero. Monero is a privacy coin. I like the fact that you can do secure transactions on that, and I'm hoping that the technology of these can be ported to Bitcoin. And that's what I like about these other coins when they study capabilities and utilities, and the developers figure it all out, and then they take that technology and port it towards Bitcoin, and that's when we'll start seeing some interesting stuff like side chains that are pegged to Bitcoin, and that would be that's what I'm hoping for the future. That these little coins just actually become development test beds for technologies added to Bitcoin, which is quite often what they say Litecoin is. Litecoin is the dev network for Bitcoin. But that was a
Yeah.
long-winded answer for Chainlink. But yeah, I don't. I'm not going to put my retirement fund into it.
No, it's and I'm starting to get a lot of questions about people texting me on Facebook like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm finally, what do I do?
yeah, yeah.
And or they're being like, hey, what about this, shit coin? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like my response to everyone is like, Bitcoin. You
Yeah.
have to get a solid position on
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin,
Yeah.
and you have to determine what you think that is.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have half a Bitcoin or point
Yeah.
0.1
Yeah.
Bitcoin, whatever,
Exactly.
whatever you think is within your grasp and would set you up, 10 years down the road to
Mm-hmm.
be financially, free. And then
Yeah.
after that, if you want to take a little bit more of a risk, I
Mm-hmm.
think a safe risk is Ether. And I tell people
Oh yeah.
definitely, get at least one Ether,
Mm-hmm.
like set that as a goal.
Right.
And then
Right.
after you've like gotten your positions in those,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
then take $50, $100 stabs at shit coins like
Mm-hmm.
Chainlink or
Yeah.
EOS or
Mm-hmm.
Tron or whatever,
Yeah.
like it's there's nothing wrong with that risk because
Mm-hmm.
like I said, you know, even that top 20, like you said, even outside of that, it's scams.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they kind of all go up together. The
Yeah.
top
Exactly.
100 all will go up at the same
Right.
time. It's,
Right. 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 Right.
so it's worth it. It's just, that's what I'm telling people is like, you got to sell once that does go up,
Yeah.
because it won't last. There isn't going to be some future where there's still 1,000 cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And your average user isn't staring at a chart all day long and trying to be Wall Street trader with their crypto. And that's why if they're going to jump onto anything other than Bitcoin, look for something that gives you a utility. Look
Hmm.
for something that gives you something useful to do. Um, for example, there are non-fungible tokens on a variety of blockchains like Wax and Ethereum. And these non-fungible tokens are, think of them as like baseball cards, right? My, baseball card might be worth $1 million and your baseball card's worth, 50 cents. We're not going to trade that. So they're non-fungible in that sense. Yet they are essentially the same thing, right? They're both baseball cards with a picture and stats on them, and we can trade those instruments on a blockchain. And non-fungible tokens are becoming very popular. extraordinarily popular because you can prove authenticity, you can prove ownership, and so forth. So when individuals they can pick one up at a variety of different events, or you could have a NFT for your podcast, that type of thing, and you can dish those out, and you can put them on a variety of different blockchains. Ethereum is probably the most popular, but there's a few other out there. Engine is one. I think Engine actually is off of Ethereum, but it's pretty neat to see because these NFTs, they could be a sword in a game that you can carry from one game to another. They could be gold in like this game that you can then export into another game, like points or something, and or a shield or clothing or whatever. And that to me, I think is pretty neat. And you could, let's say, how something like shoes and women's purses, they actually have to register like a Louis Vuitton on their website and so forth. Well, you could get like an NFT QR code that you just scan and boom, now it's in your wallet forever, in your digital wallet. And if it was ever stolen, it
Oh,
has its
wow.
serial number, everything's encoded in it. It's yours digitally and physically. That
Mm.
kind of stuff is neat, and
Yeah.
they can gain in value, and you can sell them. So if you're gonna buy something for an investment, I think NFT might actually be where the money kind of is. Um, if you're not interested in being a day trader like a Wall Street guy with your EOS token or your XRP, and you're trying to chart it out and figure out if it's going to go up 5%, and you're going to hit your thing with an NFT. You just collect it like baseball cards, and then 3 years later you say, hey man, I got Joe Blow's NFT. You want it for $1,000, and it might be worth it.
Mm.
And it's the same thing. CryptoKitties is an NFT, and I mean it got so popular it stalled the Ethereum network. And the
Yeah.
Ethereum network is huge, and it stalled it. That's how popular it got, and it's still running to this day. So pretty neat stuff. I think that's one of the futures that we'll see come out of this, and that utility value will be really neat.
Well, and like you said, just the verification of like
Hmm.
something being real or uh being tied to a person, like you said, like that's going to be
Hmm.
important for not even
Yeah.
physical things, for data,
Yeah.
like and data management and
Hmm.
data security, like
Yeah.
that's only going to increase in importance.
Yeah.
And to have cryptographic verification of it, like that's, yeah, that value is only
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
go up,
Yeah. 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 You could encode, if you're a business, you could encode all your employee IDs into it as an NFT, and then when they get fired or they quit, you just nuke the NFT, and then it's
yeah,
gone, and they're no
yeah.
longer no longer all their accesses disappear instantly. Now,
uh,
yes, you could do that on a database, but I work in cybersecurity, and databases get hacked
yeah,
all the
all the
time,
time, yeah.
all the time, like constantly. If you just Google Elasticsearch database, Elasticsearch is a very common one. Elasticsearch database hack, you'll see tons of these hacks, huge data record loss, and so forth. And if you have a blockchain with cryptographic security, if an intruder was able to gain access to the blockchain servers that you have in your company, if he doesn't have the key material, he cannot access the encrypted data on it. So only
Mm.
the individual with the key, and he couldn't modify the data if he could see it. So you have like a couple of layers of security there, and you could see change instantly if you're monitoring it. So you would know something was going on. These Elasticsearch databases have been sitting around for 2 years, and they have 400 million records on them, completely exposed to the internet, and they just find out. It's crazy how common this is. Um, like in the cybersecurity world where I'm at, it is a constant that we're seeing these large databases with hundreds of millions of users' private data hacked, exposed all the time. So yeah, that's one of the big utilities of this stuff. Even if it has zero money value. It's not a token you can trade on the internet. If you're a business owner, you want to start studying this stuff now because it will be part of your cybersecurity, or not cybersecurity. It's going to be part of your IT infrastructure and probably within the next 10 years. And if you're ahead of the curve, like the three of us at least in this room are right now, we're going to know about these things. We understand them. In 10 years, it'll be too late to learn.
Yeah.
You'll be so far behind. It'd be like if I handed you an iPhone today and you'd never seen one before. It'd take you a while to figure it out, and it's too late. I'm already past you.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very, I know, I work for a very large company and they are all over it right now.
So Ridgeback, you brought up Monero, and we have a Monero maximalist in the chat.
Oh yeah. Nice.
So is there any other input you have on that coin? He said that the pros of it's being CPU mineable, dynamic block size, extremely low fees.
Yeah.
What's your take on Monero?
I like it. I met Fluffy Pony, the guy who developed it and is kind of the head guy. I met him at DEF CON a couple years ago. Super nice guy, very willing to talk about it. Um, there have been a couple of anonymity or anonymization attacks, I guess you could say, against it, and mostly that is due to volume. You need more volume on the blockchain in order to make it difficult for analysis. And as Monero's volume increases, the security will increase with it. And if I needed to do something very pseudo like the stream died.
Did we lose the YouTube stream?
No audio from
We are back. My bad.
No worries.
I don't know what just happened, but we're back. What were you going on about?
Oh yeah, all right. No worries. So with Monero, if I was going to use, or if I had a need for a secure anonymous money, right now my choice would be on Monero, and my other choice would be Lightning Network with Bitcoin. And one thing you would probably do is you would probably use one to buy the other, and then just super obfuscate yourself that way. So you would do some sort of swap, maybe probably not an exchange, but maybe through an online market, some sort of semi-dark market or whatever. But Monero is my choice on that. And after meeting Fluffy Pony, Monero is, yeah, I like it. It's very good stuff. I think he's doing a good job working on the security issues and so forth on that. So yeah, that's probably my only privacy coin I would trust at the moment.
Yeah. What do you think about Zcash? Because I know I heard the Winklevoss twins. Now it's on Gemini, and I heard them talking, pretty good stuff about it. That sounded pretty good to me. I heard them on a podcast talking about why they went with that as a privacy coin.
Yeah, I don't own any of it. It had gone through some weird machinations with they had that ceremony thing where they develop the initial key material for the blockchain, and then kicked it off from there, where they had all the different sites and they all kind of did it over Skype or whatever. I don't know, coming from a military crypto background, the way you generate keys and the OPSEC around that, I was a little skittish about. I mean, I know they tried to do their best to keep it all secure, but I don't know. Where I came from, it would be way more stringent and a lot more secure, I think. The only details I know about is from the Radio Lab podcast they did. So, I don't know what other things they did that I don't know about. But coming from my background, I don't trust that trusted setup. And all I ever hear is a lot of untrust of it. But then again, I haven't really looked into it to confirm any of that. But I don't own any, and I don't really put much into it. There was another privacy coin that I loved the concept, and I can't remember the name. I think it was called Zero Coin. It had an internal blockchain inside its blockchain where you would do transfers from one coin to another securely inside of it, and then you would mint new coins in a new wallet that had no history. That I thought was really slick, but it's pretty much gone nowhere, unfortunately. Now, there are two coins for security, anonymity, and privacy, Beam and Grin. They both use the Mimblewimble cryptographic proof and or concept, and those two I really think is really interesting. And the Beam guys are constantly updating. They have a blog that is just every day there's something new. These guys are just really pushing it really fast, and they're global too. Everyone's got their fingers in Beam, and I like it. It is super fast, super interesting, and they're very interested in pushing this thing forward. And they're not trying to make it into a huge money take over the world type of thing. They just want to push the technology really well, and their wallet's fantastic. So it's still kind of beta. So there could be flaws in the implementation or flaws in the algorithms, and it could anonymize your stuff instantly. But at the moment, it seems to be pretty awesome stuff. Give it a couple of years or whatever. But I do own some Beam, just for the heck of it, just so I could play with it on the Beam wallet. And if anyone in the Discord want to trade some little bits of Beam back and forth for fun, it's so cheap. I've got a bunch of it just for fun. You'll get to see how it works back and forth. It's really slick, and you get like zero metadata from the other party. There's like nothing. And when you look on a block explorer, it's just nothing there. It's really slick. I really like that about it. So I'm hoping in the future Beam will be integrated into Bitcoin, because it was designed the developer of Mimblewimble designed it to plug into the Bitcoin blockchain. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking forward to. That will be a fun coin, I hope, in the future to play with more.
Yeah.
Um,
So and kind of going along with that
yeah.
anonymity,
Hmm.
there's a new hashtag thing I've seen on
Hmm.
crypto Twitter
Hmm.
of delete Coinbase.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
so I mean I think it's part of two things. One is that when we had that little whale tail flop last week where Bitcoin went over 10K and then back down and a little bit. That Coinbase crashed so that you couldn't do anything
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
seems to always do that when it's a
Yeah.
time where you want your coins, you can't get
Of
them off of
course.
Coinbase.
Of
Um,
course.
but I think it was also in response to um, basically Coinbase saying that they're going to work with a blockchain analytics group and have access to the IRS, right?
Um,
I didn't read the full article. I'm just the clickbait title, but
yeah, so what Coinbase did is they built their own analytics, and then so what they're doing is they're joining the crypto analytics software competition, that space. So there's Chain Analytics and there's a few other ones, and they built their own. Now they claim they didn't use any customer data and so forth. And they probably didn't. They just went out to the public blockchain and then did their analytics and so forth. And um, basically, everyone on these chain analytic companies do the exact same thing. They troll the public blockchain and they draw the maps between all the coins and then the players using them, and then provide a user interface output. Well, all that analytic stuff is probably identical for all of them because the blockchain is very simple. It's just inputs and outputs. What they're probably selling is, or the differentiator between all of them is the output format, so that it either looks pretty or it looks interesting or it has a little bit more tactical or strategic value in terms of going after individuals that either the IRS wants to get, but Coinbase reported that they're working with the DEA and so forth, so they're going after drug, individuals selling stuff online and whatnot, and so. It's interesting that Coinbase decided to design and build that stuff. I think I thought they were just making a lot of money on the exchange. So I don't know how much money they're going to make on that unless they got some giant budget. Because I think they'd probably make more money selling Bitcoin than they would, or trading Bitcoin than they would selling some software package to the DEA.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering why. I wonder if it's a concession because Coinbase has a very strong fiduciary um, reporting duty to the U.S. government. That's why we all get our little tax statements from them and so forth. So, um, of all the exchanges in America, they're the most popular, but they're also the U.S. government is all up in them. So if you're a Bitcoin, if you want to escape the financial system, that's not the route to get your Bitcoin. You want to get it some other direction. You want to earn it. You want to trade it with other people, whatever. But you you know you should probably not just sit there blindly and buy it from Coinbase. Coinbase is a great place if you want to buy your um, crypto, if you're new to it, or if you just want to buy it and immediately use it somewhere, just buying stuff online, or maybe you just want to buy it in bulk and then trade it away on an exchange somewhere. But if you're trying to use it for the libertarian or the crypto anarchy in some of us, that is not the company to do that with, because they are they're reporting everything you do on them, and then every transaction with that Bitcoin is followed on the blockchain forever until anonymity is hit. And you don't really have all that much anonymity on Bitcoin. You'll have to use like a pool or a coin join type mixer to hide your Bitcoin, and at that point you're already they kind of know this stuff better than most of us, so they kind of see what you did, and they're going to come asking questions if you're up to no good, and they see what you did. That's just another thing at your trial. Like, oh, you not only did you use crypto, you also ran it through a mixer, and we know what a mixer does. It helps to anonymize what you're up to. It's not money laundering, but it's kind of a thing like that. So
Yeah.
so if you're going to use crypto for your um, um, to escape the financial system, Coinbase is not the people you want to do it with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, the sentiment where, okay, so go back to the start of the conversation. We're
Sure.
talking shit about the banks, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, well, the banks don't like Bitcoin because it's honest and everything you can, it's a transparent blockchain and you can see all this, and we don't want the banks pulling all these tricks. And then they're like, oh, so like the IRS can look at that. It's like, we don't want them to look at it. We don't want, we don't want this blockchain to be visible. And it's like, you kind of can't have your cake and eat it too. So that dream of the anarcho-capitalists that started Bitcoin was inevitably going to fail. Like obviously it'll take some time for the government to catch up, but they will.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I think what it will probably end up 10 to 20 years from now, there will probably be a lot more institutional money in Bitcoin and some of the other coins. And you might even see JP Morgan make their own and just say they'll operate on that. Um, um, and I think you'll see a little bit more privacy centric, like Beam or something like that, and people will just kind of slip and slide into that and just kind of disappear and not really really worry about the major effects of banks on Bitcoin and whatnot. I think Bitcoin is the big target at the moment, and the banks and the government and everything will be focused heavily on that. And I think that's where the big money will be made. And then those who want to escape all of that, they will, that's a good thing about cryptos and blockchain. There's thousands and thousands of other coins, and they're probably just going to have to slide a little bit into that. And when a crypto maximalist talks about an open blockchain, everyone can verify, and then, but I also want my privacy. I don't want anyone to know who I am. I think what there will be is some technology. So one of the technologies is a thing called homomorphic encryption. And there was a API for that just recently released, and it's one of the first API application programmers interface where you can write software against it. And what homomorphic encryption does is this. I have data, right? And I encrypt that data with a key. It's fully encrypted. No one in the world can read it. And I send you the encrypted data. And I know that you have an algorithm that can run against that data. Let's say I have pictures and I want them converted to black and white. They're color pictures. I want them converted to black and white. With your special algorithm, it's the best algorithm in the world, and I want your algorithm to run on my picture. But I don't want you to see my picture. So I encrypt it and I email it to you. With homomorphic encryption, you can take your algorithm, apply it to the ciphertext. It will modify that set of bits. And when you send me back that modified set of bits, I decrypt it and I see my black and white picture. And you never get to see my image.
Huh.
And I think in crypto, if they can latch on to stuff like that, you could have a homomorphic blockchain where it's fully encrypted. No one can read it, except when I want to do a transaction and I use a homomorphic algorithm, modify the blockchain with my key, and then you can verify it with your algorithm on your side. I mean, it's mind-bending stuff, but it is possible. It is possible. We have the algorithms now. These things are extraordinarily new. I think homomorphic encryption was only recently proven. We're talking like a couple of years ago, and the first API that was just kicked out was literally a couple days ago, and I remember reading through it, going, this is some weird stuff right here. This is like voodoo crypto, and
Yeah.
it's super neat, super interesting stuff. I think when the crypto currency guys latch onto that, they might throw some energy into it because that would be super cool,
Yeah.
super neat stuff. So you might be able to eat your cake, and have everything you want. I think there's some possibility. I think there's potential there.
Yeah.
If anything, just increase the obfuscation to a point where the energy in order to de-anonymize you and the person you're transacting with and the amount gets to be too much energy and they have to quit. And when I was working with the government and they would talk about these surveillance detection runs where you're driving your car and you want to, or walking around and you want to try to shake someone, a surveillance team watching you, you do a couple of things. And one of them is, one, make it very boring because humans get bored. And when they get bored, they start missing details and they start missing watching you. And the other one is to split their attention in a million different directions or split the team. So if they only have two tailing teams with two people on it and you split in 3, 4 different directions, those teams can't keep up with all the angles. So something along those lines could be applied to blockchain, where you have a transaction blockchain using homomorphic encryption, you have a Mimblewimble in between, and then another blockchain on the other side of that, and it's just too much of a mess. You as an analyst, you couldn't keep up with the volume or anything. So I think
Yeah.
give it 10 years. I think
Yeah.
it'll just be stunning, and you won't be able to do chain analysis at all, and Coinbase will be relegated to only Bitcoin and the main Bitcoin chain, because I think it'll be so easy to add these features to a blockchain. They'll just snap them in and just make it default. And people, if someone makes a good one, they might exit Bitcoin a little bit to get into that, and that would be a very interesting day to see that.
Well, I think inevitably we'll get to this point. I think you even commented in the Discord, and I thought it was a good analogy of that. Like, Bitcoin will become so slow and expensive to move that it will be like this gelatinous layer of the block, of the internet, and that's where all that other stuff is going to come into. Where, like, when one Bitcoin moves, it'll be the bots on Twitter that say when 5,000 are moving now, they'll trigger when one Bitcoin moves.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. That base layer analogy, I think, is going to happen for certain. And Bitcoin is the slowest of them all. It's a 10-minute, on average, 10-minute blockchain. That's extraordinarily slow compared to all the other ones. But there's a lot of security built into that. There's a lot of that. It's analogous to gold, right? If I have a 500-pound brick of gold, it's going to take a lot of weight and a lot of energy to move it, and it's certainly valuable.
Yeah. Or to spend it, or to give it to someone like you. Yeah, and
you got to saw it with into pieces and melt it down with a torch.
Yeah. And as we were talking about altcoins and stuff like that, I think I'm a Bitcoin maximalist in that I think that is the inevitable future of Bitcoin, and I don't think that's up for debate of who's going to be that gelatinous layer of the internet of value.
Yeah.
What everyone's arguing about is who's going to be the spending money, who's going to be the transaction stuff, or is it going to be Lightning Network or some other thing like that. But as far as like there's nothing out there that has the ability or the anonymity to be this kind of store of wealth for the world, not just for people, but like that is the value of the internet. Bitcoin's the only thing that can pull that off, and it's not a question of what could unseat it from the number one thing on the market cap. Just that won't ever happen.
The only contender would be Ethereum, and their development. So Bitcoin's development is extremely slow because they're extremely conservative, and for good measure, and they need to guarantee its security. Ethereum's development is extraordinarily fast, and they're willing to throw out some of the security to make mistakes, to push Ethereum forward. And Ethereum 2.0 is very soon, and they're switching to a proof of stake where you just own Ethereum instead of mining Ethereum. And when you own Ethereum, you then make money on your Ethereum because you have a Ethereum node with a stake in it. And I don't know what that stake amount will be, but it could be extraordinarily profitable. And Ethereum is designed to be a global computer that can do compute, but it can also build other coins and cryptos and so forth, which vast majority of all these little shit coins are just built on Ethereum. So I have a bullish case for Ethereum to be a valuable money mover, because as it moves to 2.0, maybe 3.0, there's already people adding anonymity side chains to Ethereum. 2.0 should be a lot faster. It could be a super contender for Bitcoin, and you can do wrapped Bitcoin on Ethereum. Like, you can put Bitcoin on Ethereum and shoot it across the Ethereum network 5 times faster than Bitcoin can move Bitcoin, which is really wild, and it's probably 100 times faster. So when it goes to Ethereum 2.0, so I like Ethereum as a development platform. They're moving forward so fast, and they have almost as many nodes as Bitcoin. So, and
Yeah,
then every other coin is just fighting for third place. They're so
yeah.
far
I
so
guess
far
that
behind.
yeah, yeah. I think there's enough critical mass with
Hmm.
Ethereum that like
Yeah.
I don't believe all these coins that are, for in 2017 or whatever, with all the hype, there was always
Hmm.
the Ethereum killer or the
Sure.
Chinese Ethereum. They always, had
Yeah.
some coin that was
Yeah.
just going to be like Ethereum and whatever. And I don't think that's the case. And I think when Ethereum 2.0 comes out, like that'll just be, and especially with the staking,
Hmm.
um, I think that'll be the final, like, yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah.
when second place is claimed, at that
Yeah.
point. And
Yeah.
I do agree. I think I and I'll believe it when I see it, but I think the numbers that you were mentioning about the staking is
Mm-hmm.
32 coins to stake, and I think
Mm.
they said 10% Ethereum per year,
Oh my gosh.
which is insane. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
3.2 Ethereum a year. Like, good
Hmm.
luck getting anything close to that through the
Yeah.
standard banking systems,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that's the future. With toppling the banks doesn't
Hmm.
mean um it undercutting them or
Hmm.
infiltrating them. It's just
Sure.
being more effective than them.
Right. Right.
Like
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you were going to put money in a CD at a bank, you'd be
Hmm.
lucky to get 1% a year,
Yeah.
and the inflation is going to go so
Hmm.
crazy from all the money printing we've just had.
Hmm.
You're actually going to lose money by keeping it in the bank.
Yeah.
But if you turn that money into Ethereum and you have at
Hmm.
least enough to get 32 of them,
Oh my
you're going to
gosh.
get
Yeah.
more money back. Now,
Mhm.
that money's going to be volatile because it's tied to trading markets
Sure.
and stuff like that. But if you're putting it in,
Hmm.
say we're going to do a 4-year CD,
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure in 4 years, whatever 32 or
Yeah.
more Ethereum you had are going to be worth more than when
Yeah.
you put when you staked them.
Yeah. I'm pretty bullish just on in crypto in general. It's not going away. There's thousands of developers throwing their life at this stuff and they're not going away. And one thing about Ethereum versus Bitcoin is every little crypto meetup that I've done physically that offers like technical type training classes or whatever, the training classes for programming were always on the Ethereum blockchain. They were never on the Bitcoin one because unless you're the top, 12 or 13 Bitcoin crypto guys in the world, you're probably not going to have too many changes to the Bitcoin blockchain.
Yeah.
In the dev repo, there's not really, Vitalik Buterin used to be a Bitcoin dev, and he kept throwing out these ideas, and he got mad at the Bitcoin devs because he couldn't do what he wanted. He was like, "Hey, why can't we do all this cool stuff?" And they're like, "No, go away, kid." So what does he do? He rolls around and makes Ethereum, and it's worth $27 billion today.
Yeah.
27 billion with a B.
Yeah.
That is crazy, crazy, crazy. And he has tens of thousands of developers behind him now.
Yeah.
And anyone in the world can develop on Ethereum. Anyone. If I had the coding chops, I could today, right now. And I've actually done like real basic Solidity contracts, which is a little programming language. It's hard. It's weird, but hey, it's coming along,
Yeah.
and it worked. It worked. I can't do that on Bitcoin at all.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have it. Now, eventually Bitcoin might just absorb those capabilities in the future, but they're going to move so slow, and most of us want this stuff to happen now.
Yeah.
So very bullish on Ethereum as a fast-moving, high-speed, develop something interesting, build cool apps on it, fast transactions, and so forth. Um, and I think in the end, it'll probably just be those two. I think it'll just be Bitcoin and Ethereum, and
Mhm.
then the rest, the
And all
rest.
the
Yeah,
digital
yeah,
fiats,
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah.
and well, that was another story with Ethereum that, like, I mean, it resulted in maybe a 2% increase in its value or whatever, but the Fed chair saying that the Fed was going to use the Ethereum
Yes.
network for like this rate
Right.
adjustment,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. The
Yeah,
light
whatever
or
it was.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's like,
Right.
can you imagine if
Holy
that story
crap.
came out in 2017? Like
Yeah.
Ethereum would have been worth $80,000 a piece.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, like
Absolutely.
with how the hype and news cycle was, and now it's
Yeah.
like, nobody cares. But that's a
Yeah.
big deal.
Oh,
Like,
it is. It is. Yeah, I thought that was fantastic. I mean, you have these guys actually mentioning one of the blockchains out there
yeah,
is going to, potentially be used.
yeah, to
And
where I mean, maybe even a year ago they were like, crypto's bullshit.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's for money laundering
yeah.
and
Drugs.
drug
Yeah.
dealing and all sorts of illicit activities and interest rate adjustments by the Fed.
Right. Right.
It's
Yeah,
like so.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So so yeah, that is just little things like that are going to happen more and more and more often. And um, most of us in this space watch the news every day, so we just see little tiny improvements, little tiny bumps. But if I stopped watching the crypto news and just looked at the crypto news once every 6 months, I'd see giant jumps. And these
Yeah,
things are happening. They are absolutely happening. Marshall Islands are making a some sort of blockchain type thing for all their money and everything going on. That just started a couple days ago. Um, there are little chain of islands that we shoot missiles out of for testing. Um, but they're their own sovereign state. They're getting into it. China is claiming their digital yuan soon. I know Russia's working on one. And there was a mention of the digital dollar in that was that Relief Act a month or so ago.
yeah,
It got yanked out, but
yeah.
um, you know,
I yeah, I really think with that, the news we've gotten about, we got a I forgot what's the Russian currency, rupees, rubles,
no, that's rubles. Yeah, rubles.
rubles. Like
Hmm.
there was a digital ruble that they're talking about. Like all
Yeah.
of these digital fiat
Hmm.
currencies that seem to be part of that currency war that we were talking about, and
Yeah. Yeah.
Bitcoin's in the middle of it. Because whatever's going to be happening is going to be tradable into Bitcoin,
Hmm.
and um, right now our dollars are digital,
Hmm.
but there's a uh, there's a process that has to be direct deposited, or you have to go to your bank,
Yeah.
or if you want to digitize into
Hmm.
crypto, you have to
Hmm.
use a on ramp, a fiat on ramp, and
Hmm.
stuff like that. But once they make that step, and our fiat currencies are already digital,
Hmm.
you're going to be able to trade them into
Yep.
Bitcoin and
Hmm.
other currencies, other countries' digital currencies, just
Yep.
back and forth like gangbusters.
Instantly.
And, you know, eventually they'll catch up and make that hard to do. And you'll need to be an accredited investor to do so, or a
Yeah.
banker or something. But at the start, it's going to be just madness. And I
Hmm.
think that the first people to jump on that are going to be digital traders who are trading crypto right now.
Hmm.
And it's going to, I think that just that moment of when there
Hmm.
is digital fiat, that's going to make Bitcoin blow up just from
Oh yeah.
trading. That's just going
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
the market go crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The liquidity,
Yeah.
the ability to move, and
Yeah.
it's really interesting because there are a ton of digital backed dollars out there, like USDC and the GUSD and so forth, the Gemini USD dollar. So there are already people practicing this, and right now you can have in a crypto wallet, you can have digital US dollars that are like the USDC and so forth, and you can send that to your grandma instantly,
Yeah.
essentially, and it pops across, and there's your money, or you want to pay your landlord if he's willing to play with that
Yeah.
through his wallet. Yeah, you can shoot that money right across instantly, and that stuff is that is nothing but an accelerant
Yeah.
for this sort of stuff. And we see it already with like Venmo and Zelle and so forth. But I don't really care for any of those because Venmo kind of exposes what you're doing and their little um, voyeuristic browser that shows what everyone's doing, which is kind of weird. But then again, Bitcoin does too, but Venmo puts names on it.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
yeah,
That
I
you
don't like
don't
that.
know. Like I can
Yeah.
see everyone who uses my dog groomer. Like
Right,
you
right,
know.
right.
But also I use I only buy actually for the last couple of years. I only buy stable currency. I
Hmm.
either the GUSD
Hmm.
or Paxos or USDC,
Yeah.
and I use those partially to have dollar denominated money that
Right,
is not exposed to any sort of credit judgments or
right,
you know thievery that could go on either
right.
legally or bank
Mhm,
sanctioned thievery
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
that could go on,
Hmm.
but not be exposed to the volatility of the crypto markets until
Right.
I'm ready to put that into the crypto markets. But you
Yeah.
can still, the same way we talk about, you know, not your keys, not your
Hmm.
crypto,
Yeah.
getting stuff off exchanges,
Hmm.
storing USDC in a
Hmm.
cold wallet or
Yeah.
semi-cold wallet is safer than holding it in the bank,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure.
and
That's
if you
awesome.
did want to hold it on Coinbase, they offer a better APR for just
Hmm.
holding USDC,
Hmm.
and it just auto accumulates into your USDC wallet.
Hmm.
They have a better rate than a bank would too.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Exactly.
and so I really recommend the stable coins for just a way to hold your money instead of being in the banks that have this zero reserve shit.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and
Yeah.
and just like Coinbase can crash when everyone's trying to get their money out,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
banks can do that too. It's just not
Yeah.
everyone's trying to get their money out. But if they were,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd rather have my dollars
Hmm.
on my laptop with
For sure.
a password that's stamped in the metal.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
Like I
and yeah. Yeah, and well, banks are shut during the night and during the weekends. I can't get anything done. Like
yeah.
I'm having a fence installed at my house, and I have a giant lot, so it's expensive. So I'm moving money from bank to bank, and it's taking days to clear the money. And I keep telling my fencing guy, I'm like, it's on the way, and
Yeah.
we've all dealt with that type of pain, and he unfortunately will not take crypto because I wouldn't give him any Bitcoin, but I'd go buy some Ethereum and give it to him, or whatever, because it would just be easier, because I don't like giving up my Bitcoin. But that's the case where you would use Coinbase because you just don't care. You just buy it and then shoot it to his wallet and be done with it,
Yeah.
and not worry about it's his now. He has to carry the burden of the tax guy at that point. But yeah, it's just um, I like the fact that I can hold my money cryptographically, and I could make it disappear and just be gone with it. Or if I decided to go, I could take it with me in my brain. I just have to remember the 24 word list, that secures the wallet, and I could put that in my head. Or I could encrypt it, throw it on the internet on an internet Dropbox, disappear, go somewhere else, and pick it up and be fine. I could move to a different country and have it there, and I think that's a very strong thing for a lot of people. Like I have a friend who moved to Brazil. He's an American, and the IRS is messing with him and holding accounts and so forth. And he is an American. He's an American citizen, and he holds a dual passport with Brazil because he was born in Brazil and moved to America. Anyway, it's just kind of a weird mess. But he prefers to live in Brazil, but he wants his U.S. dollars, and the IRS is messing with him. So with crypto, it's his. He can do
Yeah.
whatever the heck he wants with it. And there are a lot of American expatriates. In fact, I just saw recently an article that the number of American expatriates is increasing rapidly. And the US government actually kicks out a list every month. It's an interesting list. It has their name on that list of the expatriates. And I
Hmm.
think it lists where they're going. And yeah, they don't like it when you leave. They out you big time. And there's like an exit fee too, and that fee is paid at the American embassy of the receiving company country upon entry. So you better bring your checkbook, because I don't think they take Bitcoin yet, but they might. They might one day.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, it's brutal. It's brutal. It's you know, like I love
Yeah.
America, but man, we do some dick things to our people sometimes.
Yeah.
And
That is not the land of the free right
no,
there.
it's not. It's not at all. I mean,
Yeah.
we're having protests across America for that exact type of, treatment of humans.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's some sort of changes made for everything, for everyone. And
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I do think, economically and socially,
Mhm.
this is a rough spot and a rough transition. And I think it's a generational transition. I think both in terms of the economy and the culture, I think
Sure.
this is like the death rattle of the baby boomer generation. And,
Yeah.
I don't mean that negatively
Sure.
towards anyone
Yeah.
who is a baby boomer, but just
Mhm.
the generation in whole,
Yeah. Yeah.
as a whole,
Mhm.
uh, you know, move out of the way, because like
Yeah.
we're about to change everything.
Yeah.
Everything that you said couldn't be changed,
Mhm.
we're just about to do it. And
Absolutely.
like you can either join in or watch your retirement go to zero. But other than
Yeah.
that, like, like
Yeah.
I think there's going to be positive outcome from everything.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
and I think crypto is a huge part of that. I think
Hmm.
it will provide the freedom that people need to
Hmm.
uh actually feel free, and
Yeah.
not just be told,
Mhm.
you're free, and be told
Mhm.
that with a
Right.
tear gas bullet and a
Yeah, exactly.
oh,
Yeah. Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. I I think as these starting from, you know, 10 years ago, so maybe about 5 years ago, so about 5 years ago until now, you have a giant chunk of the American population that is interested in crypto, and that's also global. So those individuals, so you're looking at people probably from the age of about 21 to maybe about 35 that have, they're focused on their job. They're really bringing ideas forward, a lot of energy and so forth, and they're gonna the conversations in their workplaces from every angle is quite often could be a new way of doing business, right? They're bringing in ideas, and one of those ideas is certainly Bitcoin and crypto currency. I mean, like I said, my company is a giant that we all know about, and I've been in several meetings over the last 2 years working for them. Blockchain, 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 like huge, like ramifications in the company if they get it right, and not ramifications isn't bad, but like this is going to be freaking badass if we can pull this off. And they bring me in as a cybersecurity analyst to make sure that they don't do it wrong in terms of security.
yeah,
And I'm all for it, but man, I love to shoot it down in the meetings. I'm like, look, can you just do this with a database? Well, can we secure a database? No, not really, not that great. So, okay, maybe a blockchain is a good idea. Or are you just storing stupid data and we can just use a traditional database? I try to steer them away as much as I can until I find that moment where I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. We found a few of those points. And so these things are going to happen. They are on the way, and they are coming in giant, big companies. It's just going to take a while. And
yeah,
these technologies are pretty new, and the developers are very young, and so there's going to be some mistakes made. But um, you give it 10 years, and it will
yeah.
be a normal part of your day-to-day existence. I
Oh, yeah,
guarantee it.
yeah,
I guarantee
yeah,
it. I guarantee. I mean, it's already in your Samsung phones. The latest Samsung phones have a blockchain wallet that uses the hardware security module on it. It's there right now. You already have it, which
yeah.
is pretty neat. Pretty neat.
Well, I mean, yeah, and like you said about the developers being young, we're just at the start. Like, I think honestly, I could see, maybe Vitalik or someone that we already know from these developers is going to be the next like Elon Musk. Like Elon started with PayPal, and if you go back and look at like his picture, he was this nerdy, dorky little computer guy, and now he's a substantial figure of the human race.
Oh yeah.
And I think we're at that period. We're at the PayPal inception point to where
Sure.
PayPal probably seemed like a crazy idea to people who
Mhm.
were like, "What? Just send them a check." Or
Yeah.
just wire them money,
Yeah.
or whatever. And then now we're past the point where people are like, PayPal fucking sucks, dude. Use
Yeah.
Venmo,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And all of that is going to transition to like
Mhm.
that fucking sucks. Just send them some ETH, or
Right.
just send,
Yeah.
just use the
Yeah.
Lightning Network, like, and
Exactly.
and that is what we're going to see. And one of the things, and we're at an hour and a half, so I'll
Sure,
wrap it up
sure.
here. But
Yeah, sure.
one of the things that a lot of people ask me is like, or when they comment when I
Mhm.
like share something on social media, they're like, "I wish I would have listened to you, man.
Yeah.
I'd have tripled my money by now, or
Yeah,
whatever." And it's like, dude, we're so early to the party.
yeah.
People like you and I, and people that talk about crypto, we're pleading for people to like get in early before
Right.
it's no different than anything else. And like, but it's like if you invest in the technology now,
Mhm.
the you'll be part of that growth. You
Yeah,
won't
yeah,
just
yeah.
be part of the wave of adoption that won't,
Yeah.
it won't grow from that point. It'll just be,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I'm looking forward to the next, Bitcoin cycle. I'll
I
take it
know.
4 years at a time, before I make too bold of claims, but I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to the next 4 years. And,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, I definitely, I hope we have many more of these talks about,
Yeah, yeah.
how it's evolving and stuff. But,
For sure. For sure.
definitely,
Yeah, yeah. All projections show Bitcoin's going through the roof.
yeah,
All projections, every projection that I've ever seen from every analyst. These are guys who don't even do Bitcoin. They're just looking at it and they're looking at its guts and the people around it and the money coming into it from institutional, and they hit it from all these different angles. It's all positive. It's not a
yeah,
50-50 like, we don't know, we don't know. It's 100% positive.
yeah,
And I've never seen that in the history of, I've been investing for probably like in traditional markets, oh gosh, probably 25 years now. I'm not super smart or great at it, but I've done okay. But when I read prospectuses and analysis of like a company, if you look at like um, the buy versus sell meter on a lot of stocks and so forth, it's always like swinging left and right, or maybe it's in the middle. If we did that on Bitcoin, it would be buy. It would just be
yeah,
slammed to the buy side with zero. It would be like 100% buy, not 99% buy, 100% buy.
yeah,
And so even if it doesn't make it to 100, even if it just stayed the same price, if it just stopped at 10 grand for the rest of its life, okay, it's no longer a like multiplier of your money, but you could escape into it and use it more effectively. Like you could just convert your money and all your money into Bitcoin if it just stayed perfectly at 10,000 for the rest of its life, and you would have the economic freedom to move and to pay, and no one would be able to steal it. You wouldn't have Bear Stearns collapsing and wiping out all your investments and all that. It would just be there forever, and it'd be in
yeah,
digital format that you could guarantee. So, huge belief in all of this, and man, I cannot wait for the next couple of years. It's gonna be
yeah,
really
buddy.
neat. Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, me neither. And definitely, I always appreciate having you on and talking
Yeah,
about this stuff.
it's
So
fun.
thanks for coming on. And thank you to the people that asked some questions. I know,
Mhm.
I don't think we had too many people watching, did we, Stan?
I mean, pretty average, just like 6 people. It's pretty good.
Oh,
Cool.
okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
So thank you for everyone
Yeah,
watching it live, and we'll
that's
still put
awesome.
this up as a regular podcast. But
Cool.
I appreciate you sticking through our technical glitches, or if there were any. And you know I hope you have a good night, man.
Hey, thanks.